As a type 1 diabetic who is training for an Ironman, I've certainly put some requests in my prayer time with God for assistance with my blood sugars. No, all jokes aside, Ironman training has been incredibly difficult. As somebody living with type 1 diabetes, blood sugars are an entirely new beast, with insulin to carb ratios changing weekly, basal rates always in need of fine-tuning. And as someone who is a Christian, I have put more attention during prayer time to blood sugars. It's kind of funny and odd to think about that I would ask for help with blood sugars. But in today's episode, I actually want to share a realization that I had as a result of that actually allowed me to fix a massive disruption in my blood sugars that I've been experiencing for probably 6 months. That's been getting out of the way and really making life with diabetes more difficult than it needed to be. And if you've heard of the Serenity Prayer, I came up with a version that I'm calling the Diabetes Prayer. And it's something that, whether you believe in God or not, I do believe will help you to identify and find the solution to many of your blood sugar problems. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Matt Vandevecht. I'm a certified master fitness trainer and nutritionist. I live with type 1 diabetes, obviously, as I mentioned. And today I'm going to share with you a lesson that I had to learn the hard way in order to make it the easy way. So let's get into our theme song, and I've got an exciting story for you. All right, so had some difficult blood sugars. I want to say that just to give you an idea of where we're headed with this episode. No, I came out of an ocean swim, and it's part of my training for the Ironman, and blood sugars were tanking, like already headed towards a low. My pump was alerting me it was going to be an urgent low. It's like, oh, great. Just another one of these difficulties. And this is the example I want to use today. But over the last 6 months, I've been struggling to keep up with my insulin sensitivity changes, because as I go from a half Ironman to a full Ironman, the volume of training is enormous. And honestly, I knew sort of what I was getting into, but this is just another level. It's wild. I understand a little bit more now why they call it the world's most difficult single-day endurance event, like for humankind. Starting to get a glimpse as to why they call it that. But all jokes aside, during this training process, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I believe that Jesus died for my sins. If you don't believe that, that's okay. You do you, but this is just me sharing a bit of my life. Every morning, I wake up, I read my Bible, I say a little prayer, hop into breakfast, and that serves as a nice little buffer while I'm pre-bolusing, right? So I take my insulin, and during the 15 to 20 minutes while I'm waiting to start eating my breakfast, that's where I do my little Devo and prayer. And I've noticed a pattern where for the last 6 months, a big part of my prayer is, God, please just give me stable blood sugars today. And that's been a large chunk of it. And part of me is like, why are you asking? Like, you know what to do, Matt. Just do the stuff that you need to do to keep blood sugar stable, right? But I found that because my insulin sensitivity changes so often with my training volumes, that I was calling for help, and I was asking that this weight be maybe not removed, but reduced, right? The stress of blood sugar management. And then it hit me last week that I was praying for the wrong thing. And the Serenity Prayer, if you don't know what it is, I actually pulled it up so I can read it for you. It says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That is a beautiful thing. I said, we need a diabetic version of this. So I created one. Just kidding. Not that cool. But I did have this realization while I was praying one day. I was saying, oh, God, please just let me have stable blood sugar today. I had this big workout that I had to do. I was going to be exercising for hours and hours and hours. And I was like, I just want to get through this workout. I don't want to deal with lows and highs. Please, God, just let this be an easy one. And I realized that I was praying for the wrong thing. See, I was praying for an easy pass, for answers just to be given to me, right? And I realized that if my purpose with this training is to train for the outcome of finishing an Ironman race, which is 140.6 miles. I think the average finish time is somewhere between 12 and 16 hours. It can take up to 18 hours. And if you don't get it between 18 hours, then you're done. You get a DNF, or a did not finish, which is like depressing. But I realized if my goal is to finish an Ironman race, then the training is my space to learn from mistakes. And if all I pray for is stable blood sugars, easy workouts, no challenges ever, I won't know what to do if I encounter any level of difficulty or challenge or unexpected turn of events during the Ironman race. And so I changed my prayer that day. And so instead of saying, God, please just give me easy blood sugars, stable blood sugars, I changed it to say, God, please keep me safe. And please allow me to learn the lessons I need to learn in order to be safe in the Ironman race. In other words, instead of saying, I want the easy route now and the hard route later, right? Not being prepared during the race. I want the harder route now. Keep me safe, please, God, keep me safe. But I need to learn the lessons that are going to help me to finish the race. And if I want to be safe in the race, I need to know what it's like to experience challenges, and I need to learn from them, right? The more mistakes we can make in safe environments, the easier it is to cruise through more difficult environments. And, well, answer to prayer, God gave me two very challenging situations. Day number one, I went out for an ocean swim, had my wife and daughter there. I was like, hey, let's have a little beach day while daddy's working out, headed out for a 1.2 mile swim, which is half of the distance for the swim portion of the race. And came out, I was an arrow down at 87. I was like, let's see where this goes. Next one, arrow down 78. It's like, okay. Next one, arrow down 68. I was like, I need to treat this. It's going too fast. And so I did end up having to treat a low blood sugar. And I typically do actually have pretty stable blood sugars. I made a podcast episode like 6 months ago and shared that I had, I think, 300 consecutive triathlon workouts where I was 100% time in range. Like the whole time, never went low, never went high, even doing 50, 60 mile bike rides and just craziness, right? So it's not typical for me to experience blood sugars that are out of range. In fact, I'll put a screenshot on screen. My 90-day average, typically 90% plus. I think right now it's a 94%. I've been above 90% time in range with my blood sugars on average for the last 5+ years consecutively. So anyways, my point being, this low blood sugar was like, darn, it got me. And I thought, okay, what's the lesson to be learned? That's the key here. When we make mistakes, when we encounter challenges, we need to use those to optimize for a better future, right? So for a better tomorrow, how do I avoid going low? And the tricky part is, like I said, this is half of the distance of the full Ironman swim. So if I'm going low at the halfway point, that means I'm going low in the middle of the ocean or of the water, right? Can't have that because I won't have a CGM out there. CGMs do not transmit data through water or Bluetooth, right? So even if I have my phone with me, I wouldn't get readings. So I wouldn't know that I'm low until I had symptoms, which oftentimes means it's getting pretty bad, right? I don't get symptoms until I'm like 60s, 70s anyways. So if I'm dropping that fast, that could be me drowning, right? So it's a very serious thing that I have to protect against. But two is I have this opportunity to learn, and I need to identify what the problem was, what the root cause was. Now, for me, I did learn the lesson that needed to be learned. I'm going to share it with you, but I need you to understand it's very different for each person. The amount of carbs taken, the insulin strategies, the types of exercise. My level of fitness is a lot higher than the average person's, right? Most people can't swim a mile and a half, whatever. So a lot of these variables are going to change. This is exactly why we have coaching programs, where I work directly with people like yourself to help to master blood sugars, to build blood sugar formulas, and to actually build more of a predictable and confident lifestyle with diabetes, right? Where you can actually calculate things like how many carbs do I need to go swim a mile and not go low. See, the issue is that I calculated it and then I ignored the calculation. I made a human error. So blood sugar formulas, they work. Hands down, they always work. They're airtight. The issue is that the people running the blood sugar formulas, humans, make mistakes, and I made a mistake. So the mistake that I made is that I calculated, I knew I needed 23 grams of carbs with a little protein and fat mixed in, and I needed to have a starting blood glucose of around 150. Now, I typically use dates or something similar to get my blood sugars to 150 if they're not there yet. 150 allows me to have a little bit of a drop zone, right, a buffer in case I drop, and then the 23 carbs is what I need to stay relatively stable. The issue is that I didn't bring the dates with me, so I thought, and I was sitting at about 130, okay? So I was like, okay, I need a 20-point rise, and this is how we calculate stuff in our programs. It's like, I know that based on my GTR, my glucose tolerance ratio, I need X amount of carbs to get to 150, calculated about 6 carbs, right? And with that, I used a quarter of an RX bar. RX bar is like it actually has dates in it, which is kind of funny. But it's a fat little protein bar, right? But it's higher in carbs than most, a little lower in protein than others. But I used a quarter of that, which came out to about 5 to 6 grams of carbs, and it got me exactly to 150. I was like, sweet, formulas work, as always, let's go, right? So I, right before hopping in the water, had the remainder of that, which is about 15, 16 grams of carbs, and hopped in the water, took off on my swim. And then halfway through my swim, because you have a lot of time to think to yourself, you know, you're out there for like 40 minutes, just head down in the water, stroke, stroke, breathe, stroke, 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 breathe. it's really monotonous, kind of boring. But I realized about halfway through that I didn't have enough carbs. The reason is that I used a quarter of the carbs that I needed to stay stable to lift my blood sugar to that 150 marker, which puts me 20 points lower than I would typically want to be entering the water. So I essentially entered the water at 130 with a full RX bar, the 23-ish carbs, and that 20 points is what bit me in the butt. I usually end those workouts 80s and 90s, and instead I ended the workout at 68, right, which is almost exactly 20 points lower, and of course did break the low blood sugar threshold. So this is just one very specific example, obviously, and I'm giving you guys kind of the inside look into how blood sugar formulas work once they're set up. And a lot of people hear me talk about the 80-20 blood sugar formula. That's what I use, right? And that's a piece of that formula in action just now, is identifying what needs to happen in order to achieve the outcomes you want. So I like to exit the water 80s or 90s. Feel great about that. And a big part of that is that an Ironman is a swim and then a bike and then a run. There's no breaks in between. And I need to get food in me to start the bike ride. So you're usually starving after swimming 1 to 2 to 2.5 miles, right? So if I'm in the 80s or 90s, I can just eat food and not dose for it and be on my way. So I want to target that threshold and just thread the needle, right? Like not go low, but be close enough to where I can just have food and not worry about dosing. Now, the issue with threading the needle is that if you're off by even 20 points, it's a whole different game, right? My energy was zapped. I got low and I did have to treat a little bit. And I was just like, dang it, you know. Thankfully, it wasn't a race, so it didn't matter. But that's the whole point of today's episode, is that could have happened in a race had I not experienced that challenge in practice. Now, see, with diabetes, a lot of times people will restrict themselves, live by the rules, stay in routines in order to guarantee an easier day, right? Law of small numbers, less carbs, less insulin, less variables. But the issue is you're gonna have a day where you go out and travel or go out with family for dinner or something ruffles your feathers, right? Your routine is thrown off. And you're not going to know what to do. You're not going to know what to handle it. So challenges are actually God's gift to us in order to adapt and learn how to manage and manipulate variables in our favor. So I realized this, and since then that has been my prayer, that I learn the lessons I need to learn. That I'm safe, of course, that's part of my prayer too. But I ask God that He would teach me the lessons I need to know in order to have a safe outcome of the Ironman. And I think this is a powerful perspective to not shy away from challenges, to not shy away from difficulty, because oftentimes doing the hard things are what's going to get us the results that we're seeking, right? If you seek an easy life, you're going to have pretty poor outcomes. But if you seek out the hard things in life, learn the lessons you need to learn, and really build up your own character, your confidence, your abilities, you level up as an end result. It's an amazing distinction. And I'm trying to lean more into it. Now, this being said, very few people seek out difficulty and challenges. But when you encounter difficulty and challenges, if you shift your perspective to, instead of why me, or I hate this, or this is hard, to instead be, what can I learn from this? How is this helping me? What will this make possible as a result? That is just night and day difference as far as how you can use that challenge to boost you, right? So I wanted to give that example. The next day, by the way, I had another low. Actually, technically, I did not go low. So the next day's workout was interval sprints on my bike. And during this, the whole point is to do sprint, rest, sprint, rest, sprint, rest. It's very difficult. I don't look forward to those workout days when my coach puts those on my calendar. But the resulting blood sugar went stable, 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 and then dropped off a cliff. And at the end of my workout, when I was cycling back to the car, I took a peek and it was 70 double arrows down. I was like, oh gosh. my heart just sank, and I was like, this doesn't look good. Now, leading into it, I did catch it a little bit earlier because I heard the drop tones, right? Where it said it was, I think, arrow down at 105, and then it was double arrows down at 86, and then it was double arrows down at 70. So at, I think, like the 90 marker, I started drinking a little bit of sugar and trying to like balance it out, right? And thankfully, I did catch it early. I did end up hitting 70 double arrows down and then 73 stable. So it never technically went low, but for a hot second there, I guess technically for about 4.5 minutes, my heart sank. And I was like, oh gosh, I hope I caught this in time, because that means my next reading, if you guys know the arrows behind the meanings, it could be like 50, right? Or worse. So, caught it, it was fine, but lesson learned, I went too long without fueling. And this is more of a nuanced topic with endurance training, but there are a certain amount of carbs per minute or carbs per hour that endurance athletes need to calculate in order to know how to avoid large fluctuations in blood glucose levels. And that's part of the deal. Yesterday, I did a 50-mile bike ride followed by a 12-mile run. That was a lot. It was a very long morning. And I took in 1,800 calories with no additional fast-acting insulin, just basal insulin. And that's the kind of stuff where these blood sugar formulas are critical. But for most people, blood sugar formulas enable freedom. They enable flexibility, right? Where you can go and have pizza and stay in range. You can have ice cream, and it doesn't have to be junk food either. It could be a healthy lifestyle thing. You can go play with your grandkids. You can make memories with your kids. You can travel the world without worrying so much about the what ifs of blood sugar fluctuations, right? And I think that this is the biggest distinction I can give you from my own personal life this last week, is that instead of trying to avoid challenges like I was, God, please give me stable blood sugars, it became, how can I use the challenges that are going to happen in order to improve outcomes later on, right? So if I'm going to experience challenges, I better learn from them so that I don't continually repeat them. And a lot of times I hear people talk us on consultations that I do on the phone. People say, I've been trying the same thing for years and it's just not working. And I'm like, okay, well, that sounds a lot like the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Oftentimes our doctors tell us, oh, just keep trying, right? Oh, just keep taking your insulin. Diabetes is just crazy sometimes. And that doesn't have to be the case. And if you're stuck in a rut, if you're stuck in routine or restriction or rules behind diabetes, if it feels like diabetes is forcing you to live in a box and you're not able to learn the lessons you know need to be learned in order for you to have more freedom, blood sugar formulas are probably the best bet for you, probably a big part of the solution. For a lot of my clients, blood sugar formulas give control, but more importantly, give predictability and the option to manipulate blood sugars. I told you guys, I was at 130. I knew exactly what I needed to do to get to 150. I knew exactly what I needed to do to stay at 150 and end at 80s and 90s with a 1.2 mile swim, right? Yesterday, 50-mile bike ride and then a 12-mile run. I was 98% time in range. The entire run, I stayed between 90 and 120 for a 12-mile run. That is the power of blood sugar formulas. Not endurance athleticism, but that level of precision. Now, if you hate the idea of precision, probably just don't even hang out here, because I obsess over that. I love analytics of blood sugars. I love the idea that diabetes not only can be controlled, but it can be controlled so well that we actually have confidence behind our numbers and we get our life back, right? So if that's something that lights a fire in you like it does for me, where I'm like, I can have freedom with diabetes. I can train for an Ironman, but I can also be a family man and play with my daughter and go out to dinner with my wife and not have to worry about the menu, right? These are things that blood sugar formulas enable us to do. So if that lights a fire inside of you, you're like, man, I wish I could just live my life and then have diabetes be part of my life instead of living for diabetes. I want to live with diabetes. We do have a training that explains the foundations of blood sugar formulas, and that's where I'm going to recommend you start your journey with us. Okay, so start there. It's totally free. Gives you an idea of what blood sugar formulas are, kind of how they work, how you might begin to set them up, and then if you want help setting up your customized blood sugar formula, of course, there's an option to chat with my team, see if we have spaces to work with you, or at the very least, they'll give you some resources to help you to make progress on your journey. You can find that training at diabetesinaction.com. And like I said, just go watch it, take notes, make sure you implement. But that is something that I wanted to put out there to give people a head start, to get past just surviving with diabetes, to start learning the lessons and actually making positive changes that enable you to live your best life and ultimately thrive with type 1 diabetes. So diabetesinaction.com, go check it out. And to recap today's lesson, don't ask for an easy life, because it's just going to make the rest of life harder. You're not going to learn the lessons you need to learn in order to thrive. And so instead, we need to look for these challenges and use them for our benefit, right? To look for lessons to be learned that enable us to have a smoother future. And sometimes this does mean getting uncomfortable, facing fears. This is something that I'm doing as well. I do not like being low. In fact, I hate it. It's probably my least favorite thing in the entire world. So 2 days in a row of that was like, whoo, man, okay, let's learn these lessons quick, because I dislike that. But it's given me areas to improve upon, and I know that each week that I learn lessons means that the next week's going to be even smoother. So with that, stay strong. Type 1 diabetes is hard. There's a lot to consider. It's actually really complicated. Doctors don't really talk about that, but we do. So go to diabetesinaction.com. Let's get you moving in the right direction towards confidence and freedom. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Keep up the fight.